That is just one more reason, my friends, why the stakes in this election are as high as any in our lifetimes. You know, I've been involved in politics in one way or another for many years. It is not an easy business. It can get rough, and I've built up some defenses. When it comes to public service, I'm better at the service part than the public part. But this is why I do it, and this is who I'm in it for, to make life better for children and families. And that's what this race has always been about for me. Well, now we're in the final stretch. There are just 54 days till Election Day, just 54 days till the most consequential vote of our lifetime. And just a little more than a month until early voting starts here in North Carolina. Let's make these days count, particularly here, because you know what your governor and legislature tried to do. Make it harder for young people to vote, harder for people of color, harder for people with disabilities, harder for the elderly. There can't be any more motivation than that to make sure every young person, every person of color, every person with a disability, every older person turns out and votes. So in these final days, let's try to tune out all the chatter and the nonstop analysis that doesn't often have much to do with what the next president has to do to create good jobs, to create opportunity, to make it possible for every young person to afford to go to college or get the skills that you need for the jobs of the future. Let's talk about what really matters. And here's my promise to you. I'm going to close my campaign the way I began my career and the way I will serve as your president should you give me that great honor. Focused on opportunities for kids and fairness for families. Next week, I'll go to Philadelphia to talk about challenges facing our young people. In Florida, to focus on building an economy that welcomes everyone's contributions, including people with disabilities. Then I'll be back here in North Carolina to meet with more working families. From now until November 8th, everywhere I go, I'm going to talk about my ideas for our country. You know, my campaign has rolled out detailed plans in 38 different policy areas. Yes, somebody actually counted. Everything from reining in Wall Street to creating good-paying jobs to fighting Alzheimer's, supporting people with autism. You see, I have this old-fashioned notion that if you're running for president, you should say what you plan to do, how you're going to get it done, and how you're going to pay for it. You can read it all on my website, HillaryClinton.com. We even put it in a new book called, you guessed it, Stronger Together. Get a copy of it because it tells you everything Tim Kaine and I intend to do. Now, like a lot of women, I have a tendency to over-prepare. I sweat the details, whether we're talking about the exact level of lead in the water in Flint, or how many North Carolina kids are in early enrichment programs, or the precise interest rate on your student loans, right down to the decimal. Because you know what? It's not a detail if it's your kid. It's not a detail if it's your family. It's a big deal. And it should be a big deal to your president. Opponent accountable for his. We don't need a president who says the minimum wage is too high. We need a president who knows that Americans deserve a raise to get to a living wage. We don't need a president who wants to take away people's health coverage. We need a president who wants everyone to have quality, affordable health care. And And we don't need a president who apparently thinks only married people deserve paid leave and only mothers ever stay home with the kids. We don't need someone who rushes out a half-baked plan just weeks before an election after decades of ignoring or putting down working moms. We need a president who has spent years fighting for these issues, who has a plan to support all families in all their various shapes. Ask yourself which candidate you can count on to be on your side. Respect your family. Stand up and fight for you and your kids. That is who you should vote for on November 8th, because as Michelle Obama said in her fabulous speech at the Democratic Convention, when we go to the polls this November, the real choice isn't between Democrat or Republican. It's about who will have the power to shape our children for the next 4 years of their lives. It's also about the kind of country we want to be and what we want to leave behind for future generations. People have to decide, are we going to make our economy work for everyone or just those at the top? Are we going to bring people together or pit Americans against each other and rip our country apart? Are we going to work with our allies to keep us safe? Or are we going to put a loose cannon in charge who would risk everything generations of Americans have worked so hard to build? Now, I have a lot of confidence in the American people and in our country. My opponent keeps running us down, saying we're weak, a disaster, an embarrassment. Every time he says things like that, I think about Janelle and her strength in the face of cancer, or Martha and Sarah in the face of their health challenges, and that little boy in Flint who gets up every day and goes to school even though he can't drink the water. See, my opponent has America all wrong. There's nothing we can't do when we come together as one nation, set big goals, and pursue them. And the American dream is big enough for everyone to share in its promise. So if you believe the minimum wage should be a living wage, that no one who works full-time should have to raise their child in poverty, join us. If you believe that every man, woman, and child in America has the right to affordable health care, and women should be free to make our own health decisions, join us. If you believe your working mother, wife, sister, or daughter deserves equal pay, then join us. Get involved these last 55 days. Go to HillaryClinton.com or text JOIN, J-O-I-N, to 47246. We need volunteers right here in North Carolina. We can't do this without you. And remember, the presidential race isn't the only one this fall. We've got a lot of important statewide races. Let's come together and send Deborah Ross to represent the people in the Senate. Starting on October 20th, you can register and vote early at the same time at any one-stop early voting site in your county. So the heat is on. Spread the word. Tell your friends, your family, your neighbors. If you share our vision for America's future, come be part of helping us shape it. We do not have a minute to lose. We have so many blessings. Now it's our job to deliver on those and to make sure every single person, and particularly every child, no matter who they are, what they look like.
Okay. on the same day that the candidates were sort of competing with each other, whose health seems to be better and more stable. Donald Trump, appearance in Dr. Oz, was showing proof, he said, that he is, and he has the rigors to handle this job, all but saying Hillary Clinton does not. Bob Kusiak has been following all of this closely, thehill.com, with me right now in Washington. Bob, first off, on Hillary Clinton and how she did today and how that might have calmed people down or gotten people concerned again. What do you think?
Neil, I think this speech calmed a lot of Democrats who have been very nervous. Obviously, everyone's seen the video of her at that 9/11 event when she had to be helped by several people to get into that vehicle. That troubled a lot of people. So I think this speech was an effective one. She came out, she said she had time for reflection, and then she went after Donald Trump, as you mentioned, and she said, look at all the people who can't afford to just stay home. It made it kind of a policy speech. However, that said, Neil, she has lost ground in September. Donald Trump had a very rough August, and Hillary Clinton in the battlegrounds, Ohio and Florida, Trump in recent polls is now winning. So being off the trail has not helped her. I don't think these health issues, questions are going to go away, especially because, as you know, she didn't reveal that she had pneumonia on Friday until after the incident on Sunday.
You know, one of those states as well where she's slipping is North Carolina, where she is today. She had a slight lead. Now she's down a little bit. Other polls seem to confirm, as you indicated, Bob, in other states the same. But you know, as you often remind me, these snapshots are just that, one snapshot. The image doesn't necessarily stay. So the momentum has been Donald Trump's, but can she get over this? Does an appearance like this, that called into question her health and whether she's been honest about that, or did this ease a lot of concerns? You talk about Democrats who were very worried about this, and even speculation, some of them were looking to maybe a Joe Biden run, just in case. Do you think that's alleviated, or are they still panicking, that is Democrats, these poll numbers in these swing states?
Well, look, Neil, I don't think she can have another health scare, period. So this one speech will help her, but she's going to have to string them together. And as you mentioned, that snapshot, okay, you know, a lot of people that I talked to in August thought, well, Trump is done. Well, Trump is not done. And we have this big debate that's a week from Monday. That's going to be a huge factor. She's going to have to be strong in that one. She just is going to have to convince the public that she is healthy. She is going to be turning 69. Trump is 70. This is the oldest presidential matchup in history. So health is a legitimate question and concern.
You know, she did have very quickly a thing to say about Trump that, you know, he has been bragging lately in the last couple of weeks, and he has put out a number of positions and staked some claims here, but he's been claiming that Hillary Clinton is not, and that roils the Clinton folks to say, well, we have these position papers and briefing papers, but it's all what you're doing in the moment, isn't it? How does she counter that, or can she?
I think it's hard to counter because this is the year of the outsider, and that helps Trump. She has her own advantages, like the demographics of the country, but Neil, I don't think a lot of people care about your 10-point plan this year. It's just not the case. Donald Trump has not had a lot of specifics. He spelled out some specifics today on tax policy. It's not the year of the specifics. So I think that Hillary Clinton has to worry about her trustworthy numbers. That's more important than having a 10-point plan, at least this year.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. Stepping back for this and what you're watching here, Hillary Clinton wrapping up a speech in Greensboro, North Carolina. You might notice, and you have seen, that she's spending a good deal of time with the crowds there. She's trying to reverse numbers that have gone against her in the latest week or so, and in a host of other states. The commonality here in those swing states, be it Ohio or Florida or North Carolina, or for that matter, what's happening now in Pennsylvania, where her lead is down to single digits, is that surge of hers is being compromised by folks who are not feeling much of this economic growth, that in particularly these swing states, it isn't what it was. In fact, income growth in the so-called battleground states is the weakest of all the states, and this is where all those electoral votes are. We have Trump economic advisor Steve Moore with us, attorney Danielle McLaughlin, and Carrie Sheffield, the founder of Bold.global. Steve, your candidate, of course, and you're advising Donald Trump. He was in New York City today, speaking for the Economic Club of New York, outlining his plan to get that growth going, including the battle states. He talks about that growth and how to turn that around. Clearly a message way beyond the Waldorf Astoria where it was today, but to those very battleground states, huh?
You got it. And, you know, I was there today, Neil, and watching that speech, and helped a little bit with the preparation of that speech and the plan itself. And then I just watched on your network Hillary's speech, and it was night and day. I mean, Donald Trump really did put out a very specific plan: what we're going to do on taxes, what we're going to do on energy policy, how we're going to roll back regulations, what we're going to do about Obamacare. And Hillary, I didn't hear much of a plan to do much of anything. The heart of the plan, Neil, that came out today was this 15% business tax rate for all businesses, whether it's the big companies or whether it's the small businesses. We're finding that to be very popular. And to your question about those battleground states, you're exactly right. This was a message really delivered to people in industrial states like Wisconsin, states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, where so many jobs have been lost. And by the way, Donald Trump had a very good line today. He said, it used to be that we made cars in Michigan and you couldn't drink the water in Mexico, and now you can't drink the water in Mexico and make the in Michigan we make the cars in Mexico, and people got a
it was
rise
a clever,
out of that.
it was a clever play.
Yeah.
Danielle, I don't know whether you're in that camp of Democrats concerned about Hillary Clinton's slippage in the polls, and as I stress, that could change. I mean, we know Donald Trump was doing well after the Republican convention, then Hillary Clinton after the Democratic convention. Now it's reversed again. So I don't know where this is going to go in the next 5 or 6 weeks. But I'd ask you, is she prepared to deal with this slippage in these battleground states, and whether she has a plan to address that? Because whether Democrats scoff at Trump's plans or math or tax proposals, he is apparently winning a lot of folks over with that. What do you do?
She certainly has a plan, and she's a plan for all Americans. The recent census results aren't great for the battleground states, and we can all acknowledge that, but they are generally good top line for the entire country. And when you're running a political campaign...
Well, that's news to those in the battleground states,
No,
right?
and I totally agree with you, but when you're running a political campaign, sometimes the easiest story to tell is a good one. Clinton has really suffered with emails and with her foundation, having to tell a much more difficult story than the top line news headlines might suggest. She is turning states that have been really reliably red blue in a way that we haven't seen in some instances since 1970. So she's out there. I think today was an opportunity for a reset for her. You saw her.
Are you watching the same numbers I am, though? I don't mean to dismiss your math here, but it's just the opposite of late. And that could change, Daniel. You're right. But, Carrie, I'm looking at that, and I'm seeing a lot of states that had slipped into Hillary's column that have slipped out. Now, by my math, and I could be off a little bit, about 54 to 60 electoral votes that were in her column up until just a few days ago are in Donald Trump's. So the electoral math would seem to always prohibitively favor Hillary Clinton. Now, for the time being, favors Donald Trump.
Sure, there has certainly been some tightening. The convention bump that Hillary got has dissipated. She's had these major health problems, the scares. But I gotta be honest, Neil, I think Megyn Kelly said it well last night. Colin Powell's emails, as scandalous and maybe too salty as they were, a lot of people agree. A pox on both houses. The fact that it's so tight means that nobody's running away with it. I mean, Stephen, seriously, your candidate, he's got to clean things up. When you hear him talk, a lot of times he sounds there's no daylight between him and Hillary Clinton. When he's talking about free nanny state care for everyone, there's no such thing as free nanny state care. When you hear him, praising government health care, universal health care, there's no such thing as free health care. There's not a lot of daylight, and so people are upset. Trump should be running away in states where there's battlegrounds, because economically, people are willing for something different.
I thought it was just the opposite, that it was the Hillary Clinton folks who were amazed that there was a contest going on here. It's the old John Lovitz SNL skit. Can't believe I'm losing to this guy, but I could be wrong. But Steve, the one thing I did want to raise with you is that you kind of came up with a plan that many say calls for doubling the type of growth we have now and doing it with dramatic tax cuts that his critics say is going to worsen deficits and going to compound the debt problem. You say what to that?
Well, a couple things. I mean, first of all, to this line that the top line numbers of the economy are good. No, they're not. No, they're not. To most Americans, they're not. 2/3 of Americans think the economy is going in the wrong direction. That's been consistent for the last 2 years. You look at the new census report that came out. There's no killer statistics for Hillary. The average family has a lower income, is poorer today than they were 10 years ago. I mean, how in the world can you run a gun on that economic message? Now, what Trump is basically saying is we're going to get the economy moving by getting the government off the back of businesses on the taxes and on the regulations. And he made a good point today, Neil. He said, look, when I talk to businessmen and women, whether they're talking about manufacturers or Silicon Valley companies, or whether you're talking about small businesses, they say the regulatory stranglehold that's been imposed by Obama is an even bigger problem than the tax code. But this is the old Reagan formula. It's the formula of cut taxes, get the government off the back of businesses, and they will expand and they will bring
Real
their
quickly,
jobs
Danielle,
back.
do you think that's going to register? You think it's going to register?
Sorry.
Danielle?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, James Carville said in 1992, it's the economy, stupid. I just reject the notion this is ultimately going to be about the economy. This is about personalities. It's the personalities, stupid. And I think the census numbers absolutely did show improvement, not considered that we had a depression in 2008, but we're slowly seeing growth. We're slowly emerging. That is thanks to 8 years of Obama. So voters are going to have to make that decision.
1% of the last year.
Okay.
1% of last year.
Stephen, I love hearing you talk. When I hear you talk, it's very different from what your candidate. Your candidate is talking about slapping tariffs. Your candidate is talking about punishing businesses for shipping jobs to Mexico. You don't incentivize a company to stay by punishing that company for sending jobs to Mexico. That's just not how economics works. And the other thing is these swing states.
Maybe you scare them not to. All right, well, we had a lot of good issues here. I'm sure we wrapped up all the economic and pressing financial ones in about 4 minutes, which I deeply appreciate.
Okay.
Guys, thank you all very, very much. Real quick peek at the corner of Wall and Broad. A big gain today, 177 points. Apple, a big part of that. Technology, a big part of that. Apple stock has been on fire with the official release tomorrow, that iPhone 7. The stock was up about 3%. It's gained about $15 billion in market value. So obviously there's a propensity for folks to want to spend, but they'll pick and choose what they want to spend on. All right, Jack Welch. You remember when Mark Cuban was here not too long ago saying that Jack Welch was being very, very unfair to Hillary Clinton and saying some horrible things. So then Mark Cuban said some horrible things about Jack Welch. Well, now it's Jack Welch's turn.
This was dual engine loss followed by an immediate water landing with 155 souls on board. No one has ever trained for an incident like this.
Rated PG-13, now playing.
If you're like thousands of veterans who own a home, you may be thinking about refinancing to get money for your family, but you may not be thinking about a valuable VA benefit veterans like us have earned: the right to apply for a VA home loan for up to 100% of your home's value, not 80% like many other loans. That's an important difference, because that can mean a lot more money for you and your family. Money for retirement, unexpected medical bills, home improvements, or just to put in the bank. The New Day 100 VA loan lets you refinance your mortgages, consolidate your credit card debt, get cash, and lower your payments an average of $640 a month. And New Day will even pay for your appraisal. Take advantage of the VA home loan benefit many vets don't even know about. Call New Day USA right now, because no one works harder to help veterans get the financial security we deserve.
Go to newdayusa.com or call 1-877-778-4963.
Americans are buying more and more of everything online, and so many businesses rely on the United States Postal Service to get it there. That's why we make more e-commerce deliveries to homes than anyone else in the country. The United States Postal Service. Priority, you.